What up, what up, what up, what up? It's your boy P. Skip. Welcome to the best half hour of your entire Tuesday. You know what time it is. It's time to get into his court. My squad with me, T-Mac.
Hola.
Chili Will.
Gracias, amigo.
Let's do this. Let's get into this, y'all. We normally have the regular crew. We got T-Mac, Chili Willie, and myself, but today we have a special guest, none other than Chris Brouchard is with us. Ow! Let's do this. So listen, Luke chapter 14, starting at verse 28, and I'm going to read this out of Amplified. For which one of you, when he wants to build a watchtower for his guards, does not first start or first set up or set down and calculate the cost to see if he has enough to finish it? Otherwise, when he has laid a foundation and is unable to finish the building, all who see it will begin to ridicule him, saying, this man began to build and was not able to finish. Now, I said that because there's a few teams that in the NBA that are starting to build some things that I'm wondering, have they counted up the cost to see what they're doing? I'm looking at LA, the Lakers, and I call them the Geritol squad. Because all these jokes, I'm like, every time I look at this, I'm like, LeBron, is everybody on AARP on your squad, bro? But do you think, looking at the Lakers and what LeBron is trying to build and what the Lakers are trying to build, do you think they're building what it takes to win a championship?
They're gathering talent. That's all they're doing.
Right.
And so they have two issues that are going to face them. One is health because of the age, as you mentioned.
Right.
But even if they're healthy, the question is, will the pieces fit together? This is going to be the greatest chemistry experiment I've ever seen in the NBA.
Right.
Real talk. Like,
Right.
how is LeBron and Westbrook, how are they going to fit together? That's the big question. Now, I've said this in the past. I say, if you ask me Lakers or the field in the West, I'd probably take the field.
Right.
But if you force me to pick one team that I think will win the West, I would go with the Lakers, just because they have far more talent. And especially with Kawhi Leonard hurt, who knows? I don't personally think he'll be back next year, but maybe he will. But if he's out, who in the West is going to challenge the Lakers? Phoenix is good, but they're not scaring you. Denver, Dallas, the Clippers without Kawhi. Golden State, we'll see how far back they, come. But nobody else out there is scaring you. So if the Lakers can get it together, and LeBron's one of the smartest players we've ever seen, so if he can get these guys playing on the same page, then they should win the West. But I don't think they're the best team in the league, though. But I wouldn't rule a championship's a possibility because you have so much talent on that team. But it's a real question. Will AD stay healthy? He's not even one of the older guys.
Right.
But will he be healthy? Will LeBron? Look, LeBron will be 37 in December. 2 of his 3 years in LA, he's been injured.
Right.
And the 1 year he got through, he had a 4-month hiatus.
Right.
So dudes retire because you still can ball. You just can't do it through an entire NBA season.
Right.
So that is a sign that Father Time might be creeping up or is creeping up on LeBron.
But speaking of always down, AD, what do you think is the reason why he stays injured? I've heard that he doesn't spend the time in the weight room. I heard that he doesn't build his body off season. Do you think the fact that he doesn't, because just how much weight have you seen his body gain since he started to now versus, not really compared, but looking at Giannis. Giannis came in thin. Now look at him. You see the
change in his body.
You see him.
I think AD works, but he doesn't work as hard as like a LeBron, or a Giannis. So I think that his off seasons have not been as rigorous as they need to be. And you would think he would just model himself after LeBron, him being your teammate. They have the same agent, all of that. And he may have done that this offseason. He did it his first year. Because remember, when AD was in New Orleans, he would get hurt. Dudes that are always out for little knick-knack, you know, hamstring or back spasms or quad, that's when you start to wonder. It's one thing if you hurt your knee, you can't play. Right. You got an ACL injury or Achilles. But when it's always these little nagging injuries, then there's the work ethic is in question and the commitment. And that was the case with AD in New Orleans. When he went to LA his first year, he definitely wanted to impress LeBron and you know, win. And he did that. He played through all these little nagging injuries. Right. But then the next year, you saw the old AD come back. My guess is that this year AD is going to be ready. That doesn't guarantee he'll be healthy, but I do think he's probably had a much better offseason than he had last year.
Yeah, I agree. I think the point that you made about LeBron, I like LA coming out the West too. Some folks think Utah, you know,
Denver.
I mean, again, they're good,
they're solid.
but are they?
No, I think LeBron, I think his body of work has demonstrated that he doesn't need much help, just give him some help. And I think that this older generation that he's picked up, cats from the YMCA, was because he
people calling him the 2012 All-Star team.
Right. You know, it's because he says, look, I'd rather trust, if I got to take a breather for a minute or two, that a Trevor Ariza can come in and contribute either a bucket or some level of productivity and not lose the lead, then some of the young guys didn't come through, or the Contavious Caldwell Pope, who jammed during the bubble but kind of fell back off a bit. So as far as I'm concerned, if they can stay healthy, because Father Time is undefeated the older you get, hey, all great athletes, be it Mike Tyson, be it Carl Lewis, be it Sugar Ray Leonard, whatever sport, as you get older, you don't maintain that level of elite
Except
athlete
for Tom
setting.
Brady.
Exception to every rule.
Sorry about that. I know I'm in Green Bay territory.
It's all good. It's all good. So I think that LA is the team, the Lakers are the team to beat, you know, out west. You got a couple of wild cards. I do like Phoenix because quiet is kept. I do think, despite losing to our world champion Bucks, Phoenix and Monty Williams believe that they should have won that series. They're probably still a little shell-shocked that how did we lose it? So coming back, Devin Booker is gonna, hey, y'all didn't keep me on the All-Star team. I'm gonna show and prove to the whole league that I'm legit. The Black Mamba spirit is going to come on him and all this kind of stuff. And I think DeAndre Ayton is a bona fide all-star. Like he played much better than advertised, you know. So they're going to be a dangerous team out west. And I think those two, to me, right now, are the best two teams in the West.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think you have the Lakers and then a bunch of teams slightly behind them, including Phoenix, Utah, Dallas. Luka is my projection for the MVP.
Okay.
I did that last year too. They didn't win enough games, but if they win more games, and I think Steph will have a chance too if Golden State can get back and win a ton of games. But yeah, Phoenix is good. I mean, Chris Paul, we'll see if he can play just as well as he did last year. Right. But Devin, I love that. Devin and DeAndre are going to be better because of what happened in the finals. So those two will improve. But, you know, the West is, if it's not the Lakers, then it could be any number of teams in the West.
Is Golden State prime, provided Clay comes back anywhere near?
I think he'll be fine, yeah.
Are they back, or is that a bygone era? Y'all had y'all glory. That's it. We ain't having no more of that dynasty-esque type of basketball from y'all.
I don't expect them to be as good as they were.
Okay.
I think they think they can get close to that. But Draymond's not as good as he used to be. He's still good, you know, and he'll be better with Clay and Steph on the floor because now you don't have to worry about him shooting and the defense can't load up, can't guard him as closely as they did in the past year. But I would love for them to return to what they were. But I also think that the league certainly hasn't caught up to them, but has adjusted to some degree to what they do. Yeah. So, and their teams, the West is better. The Lakers are better than some of the teams that were out there when the Warriors had their run. So, I expect them to be good. If I were them, I would look serious. I don't think Philadelphia would do it, but I would trade Draymond to get Ben Simmons.
Really?
I think Ben Simmons is a younger, more athletic, bigger version of Draymond.
Wow.
Now,
Okay.
he doesn't give you the leadership
Right.
and the inspiration that Draymond gives you. But if you put Ben Simmons in Golden State, whew, I think he'd be nasty. And Philadelphia could actually use Draymond because they need a leader. They need somebody to get on Joel Embiid and, you know, spark that team. He's great defensively. He's a playmaker. So that Philadelphia wouldn't do that. But if I was Golden State, I'd be willing to do that.
Speaking of just staying in LA, do you think that the Kawhi and Paul George experiment is actually working, or do you think their chemistry is not? I don't think they can win a championship. Their chemistry doesn't seem like it's working because, from what I hear about, and I think Landry said it, that Kawhi is a very much so. Give me the ball, y'all get out the way.
Right. Kyle Lowry said that.
Yeah, Kyle Lowry said, not Landry, Lowry. So give me the ball, get out the way. I'm going to get the bucket. I'm not looking for y'all to do nothing. Y'all just get the rebound if I miss, but get it back. And then you have Paul George, who is trying to establish himself as a leader. Is that chemistry experiment working?
Well, it's working to a degree, but they brought him in there to win a championship. So
Right.
to that degree, it's not working. I don't think they'll win a championship.
I don't know.
They could, but I don't think they will. A few things. One, the first year together, Paul George just struggled.
Right.
So that was a problem. And Kawhi didn't deliver against Denver when they lost that 3-1 lead. So, but a lot of teams, when you first come together, it takes you that first year.
Right.
LeBron in Cleveland didn't win it his first year. You know, the second go-round in Cleveland. In Miami, they didn't win it the first year. So that can be, you can forgive that. The second year, Kawhi gets hurt. So they really haven't had a chance. I think last year they may have won it had Kawhi stayed healthy. You know, maybe. No guarantee. But they don't have a leader.
Yeah.
And Kawhi, as great as he is not a vocal leader and an inspirational leader. And Paul George is great, but he's not that either.
Right.
And so they're a very good team. Obviously, they're a contender, but I don't think they'll win the championship. I have actually said this on television, there's only one team, you know, John Wall and the Houston Rockets have agreed to look for a trade.
Right.
The only team in the league I think is a fit for Wall is the Clippers.
Wow.
Because I think I would trade Serge Ibaka, who gave you nothing in the playoffs because he was hurt, Luke Kennard, who's a shooter, young shooter that they could use in Houston, and Eric Bledsoe, who they just traded for, the point guard. I would try to send them to Houston for John Wall. And here's why I say Wall would work. I think he would go to the Clippers and willingly accept that I'm the third guy. Okay, Kawhi and then PG are the guys. I'm the third option. So he would be more of a playmaker.
Right.
And would it guarantee them a championship? No. But I think it would get them closer to the Lakers and the Bucks and the Nets.
Who did you say that?
The Bucks. I'm throwing y'all in there. I'm going to give y'all a little love.
Can John Wall stay healthy, though?
That's a question. But Bledsoe has been he's not quite as injury prone as Wall, but he's been injured a lot as well. Wall was good last year when he played. He played about half the season. He was 20.7 assists. It's somewhat of a risk, but that's why you're sending out bad contracts like Luke Kennard and Bledsoe and Ibaka aren't necessarily bad contracts, but, you know, they got money on their deals. So I would be willing to try it because they need a point guard. You saw just Reggie Jackson, what he gave him in the playoffs was big.
Exactly.
And Wall is better than Reggie Jackson. And I think Wall's at the point in his career where he would be content. He doesn't have to be the man, but he just wants to get in a winning situation and play well. And so I do think that will work for him.
You know, speaking of bad contracts, What do you think about Dennis Schroeder?
Oh my gosh, I feel for the brother. He was out there on social media showing his Bugatti, and I don't know if y'all saw that.
Yeah, this.
And I don't know what the other car was. Rolls Royce, I think.
Yeah. He had the Phantom out there.
Cause
It's just unfortunate, man, because he gave up $78 million.
And why? What was he?
Well, he thought, really you need to blame his agents.
Okay.
Because he thought that he would be able to get $100 million in free agency. So
and ended up with how much?
You need to $6 million. You need to know the market. You got to know the market. The Lakers offered him $84 million.
Right.
He turned it down and ended up getting $6 million. 1 year deal worth $6 million. It's sad. It reminds me of, well, it's a different scenario, but Isaiah Thomas, the little Isaiah Thomas,
the Brinks truck guy.
was in line to make $100 million.
Right.
And had a hip issue, but played through it to help the team and re-injured it and never got his money. Yeah. He ended up playing for like $2 million here, $2 million there. So you have to get wise counsel.
Yeah. There was a guy, a former player here, Larry Sanders. He had played, center, left in the middle of a contract, and I saw him at an event and was talking like, hey man, how you been? What's going on? I had to just kind of take a break because there are so many pressures that you all don't see that go on in the league. Most notably is when you get the big contract, people are like, how could you walk away from all of that money? It's like, well, hey, as soon as you get it, there are quote-unquote vultures out there that try to get it, back from you. You have some in your family that saying, hey, you done came up, we all done came up.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So you got to deal with that. And others, the agents, the business, investment folks got this hot, project, et cetera, and it became a mental challenge. In your experience in dealing with, these professional players and athletes just being in the mix, how big of an issue is that? Is it like Jay-Z says, more money, more problems? Or is it a matter of, hey, if you do your homework and build your team as you are getting that big bread, is cool? Or if you have limited exposure, hey, I ain't never had no financial planner. Right. How do I dive into that now? How does that work?
It's definitely a challenge.
No doubt.
But it's a challenge being poor, too. So, I mean, if you got to choose between one of the two, give me the money. Right? I'll work it out. But, no, look, I went to Oberlin College, which is a great college. Both of my parents are home, raised me well. And if I had come into millions of dollars right after I graduated from college at 21 years old, it would have been a challenge for me. But I would have had my parents to fall back on who could have given me some advice at least. Right. So when these dudes come out of school and get at 19, 20, 21 years old and they have all this money, yeah, it's tough. And some of them come from backgrounds where they came from poverty and nobody in the family really knows how to manage money. And so you have to trust somebody.
Right.
Really. You got to trust somebody that you really don't know that well.
Right.
Might be the guy you sign up for as an agent, a business manager, your coach from college, but it's somebody that you really don't know that well. So it's a tough situation to be in. So I would say you have to learn and do your homework and err on the side of caution. So even if it's that, I'm just going to save my money for my first couple years, or at least save a large chunk of it before I start investing, before I start getting in these business ventures, until I can do my homework, find somebody I can trust that I know, right? Then I think that's a good way to do it. And then the other challenges you mentioned, like Larry said, when you get all this money. I mean, but look, and you've seen this with Naomi Osaka, with the interviews with the media, Simone Biles. There are pressures that come with work, especially when you work in a public sphere. If you work in the public sphere, whether it's a politician, person on television, athlete, anything in the public eye, you're going to get criticism. You are going to get criticized. And if you can't handle it, then maybe that's not the job for you. That's where you count up the cost. Right. Before I become this or that, publicly, I need to count up the cost. Can I handle
Right.
the criticism that's going to come my way? If I want to run for politics, can I handle them digging into my past and bringing stuff up? So it's part of the job, like talking to the media, dealing with vultures. You have to be strong enough to not do, the negative. Like Chris Carter was recently talking, the Hall of Fame receiver.
Right.
And he was asked about the name, image, likeness deals in college. And he said that when he was at Ohio State, his freshman year, he made a deal with some agents, illegally, but cut a deal with agents and started getting big money. And getting that big money is one of the major things that led him into using hard drugs. And he ended up, if you know, for much of his pro career, he had a drug issue. He's clean now, thank God, and he's out of it. But you have to be strong enough in that situation. I wouldn't say don't give the kids money from the name, image, likeness, because some of them may go that route. I would just say talk to the kids about not doing the wrong thing and being strong enough to handle your own business, and handle the pressures that come with it. That's a part of life.
Yeah.
You as a pastor, right? Pressures come with it.
No doubt. Let me ask you this question, because you're always around athletes. How difficult is it for a lot of the Christian athletes to have a platform to be very outspoken about their religion and their love for God? Because, for years you hear interviews say, and I just want to thank God. Okay, but what about, how'd you do on the field? But what about that catch? They quickly cut them off, quickly shun that. Is that still a big problem in professional sports for them to have a platform to be authentically who they are?
That's a good question. I don't think it's a big barrier to them sharing their faith. Like Tim Tebow, he gets to, everybody knows his walk, and Steph, it's what you choose to do, and do you want to use your platform, and do you have the courage to use your platform to really promote the gospel? And here's the other thing. It really boils down to how good you are on the field. I've said this about Colin Kaepernick. If he was still a star when he took his stance, he'd still be in the league. You think if Russell Wilson or Pat Mahomes had been in that position, wouldn't be no problems. If LeBron James took that stance, wouldn't be no problems. And I actually thought it made Kaepernick more courageous that he did it as a second stringer, because he was expendable at that point. They could have cut him 2 weeks later and nobody would have made a peep, because at that point he was a bench warmer. So I thought it took more courage for him to do it then than had he done it when he was a superstar. So it really, you've heard probably coaches say, your level of production has to outweigh your level of distraction. Cam Newton alluded to it why he got cut. He said, my aura was too big to be a backup. And it might have sounded arrogant, but he's right. Like, if you bring in Cam Newton behind somebody other than a Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers, somebody that's great, then as soon as the starter starts struggling, the players in the locker room, the fans are going to start talking, well, throw Cam in there. So you have to, and Cam's not good enough anymore to outweigh that distraction. Tebow, that's why he was out of the league fairly quickly as a quarterback. He wasn't that good as a quarterback, number one.
Facts.
But if you brought Tebow to your team, it's you don't want your backup quarterback doing interviews with the media and the fans chanting his name at the game, and that's not what you need from a backup quarterback. So that's the distraction, So if a Steph Curry, and Steph is legit. I know Steph, I've talked to him about faith, and he's legit. But if he were just incredibly outspoken about his faith, what they gonna do? I mean, you know what I'm saying? As long as he's dropping 30 a night, shoot. He can say whatever he wants.
I love Jesus too.
Right.
Jesus got a
Real
sweet
talk. That's the truth, man. That's
In
the
a
truth.
similar vein, Chris, with the faith piece, the last 18 months with the disruption caused by COVID-19 and the pandemic being the engine to things that have happened, the caboose being the murder of George Floyd and the whole social justice piece, there was some talk, some backlash and pushback to the league, both NFL as well as the NBA, to the support of social justice measures, African American athletes, etc. Is that something that is a flash in the pants, or are these leagues, knowing that they have a sizable number of their participants and talent on the field being disproportionately African American, something that they're going to stick with as part of the ongoing mantra for their respective leagues?
Well, let's look at the NFL first. The NFL is actually doing a lot of stuff that people don't see. You could argue they're doing more than the NBA. The NBA is doing a lot of superficial stuff, Black Lives Matter on the court, HBCU designs on the court and all that. But how's that helping us? That's a little promotion. Okay, that's nice.
Right.
But the NFL, that $90 million that they gave to the athletes that Kaepernick and Eric Reed criticized, they had formed the it's Inspire Change organization. Anquan Bolden and some Malcolm Jenkins are involved with that. Man, they've been getting laws changed down in Florida, laws that affect African Americans. Like, they have actually been doing a lot of stuff that's not, sexy stuff that's getting headlines, but if you do the research, you'll see that they're really doing a lot of stuff. Troy Vincent is an African-American former player who's in the office.
Played for the Badgers.
Yeah. He's in, right. He's in the league office. He's pushing to get a lot done. So I do think there's more that needs to be done. I mean, the fact that the sparse number of black coaches they have in the NFL, like, that's where I'm at with it. Like, we got to get more black coaches in the NFL because they've moved the goalposts. When there weren't many black offensive and defensive coordinators, it was like you got to be a coordinator to get a head job. That's why you don't have many blacks who aren't coordinators. Right. Well, once more blacks became coordinators, then that went out the window. And Joe Judge, who was 37 years old when he got hired by the Giants a few years ago, he was a special teams coach. 37-year-old special teams coach for 8 years, and he gets a head job.
Yeah.
So that's
Eric
where
Bieniemy doesn't have one.
And that's the type of stuff, and not to mention the front office, which is even worse with the general managers and things. So that's where I would like to see the players hold the league's feet to the fire in that regard. With the NBA, I do think I think here's what I think needs to happen.